Welcome. Game starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Right. Hey guys, welcome back to the Ready, Set, Activate podcast, your home for all of your active gaming needs. Today, we're joined by David, who is actually a game developer at Activate. So, David, welcome to the podcast. Now, tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get into game development, specifically at Activate?
Yeah, so I was a very active player when they first opened. My roommates were beta testers, and so they invited me about 5 months after open, and I couldn't get enough. So I wanted to be on the leaderboard. I got all the badges, I got all the rewards, and then I was looking for just some part-time work, and they were hiring, so I went part-time. And during my free time, while I was talking to customers, I was just writing down game ideas I had. And I would submit it into a folder because staff were just able to put that in and the CEO would look at them. And then one day they came up to me and they were like, hey, we got like 15 submissions this month, and we just wanted to know 13 of them were yours. He's like, would you like to join me after your shifts to make some games with me? And you've talked to Adam. He's an incredibly smart, creative guy. And so we would just like talk for hours, just like going back and forth about like game ideas I had, game ideas he had, how we can make Activate better. And it was just really organic in that way, where he just invited me in and he just was looking for more ideas.
Oh, that's fantastic. And like, did you have any previous like knowledge of like coding or development or anything like that?
I actually have no experience in the realm of coding or gaming. Basically, before I worked at Activate, I worked at a board game cafe where I would just teach board games for a living. And I feel like some of the things that they did in board games translated over into how to engage with players and stuff like this. But that's like the closest. I thought I was going to be a restaurant manager my whole life.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, now that you're kind of in that development side of things, like what is your role exactly at Activate and what do you love most about it?
So my role is the games analyst is the official term for it. The idea is that Adam and I will have meetings where he will talk about game ideas he has and I'll give some suggestions, but Adam is the creative mastermind behind all of the games. And so the idea is that when Adam comes up with a game, there's a lot of work that has to get done before it gets made into a game. My role is to take his ideas and convert it over into those 10 levels and then try to show it to Adam in a way that he enjoys it. My favorite part of the role personally was when we switched to 10 levels for the games. They used to be 1 to 5 levels. When we switch it so that every game has 10 levels, my favorite part is trying to see the differences between a level 1 so anyone can play it and beat it versus those level 10s, where not only do we want the win rate of a level 10 to be very low, we want those level 10s to be low for the people who unlocked level 10 even, right? Like,
Yes.
if level 10 was for everybody, of course it would have a 1% win rate. They're like, it's so hard to beat these games. But the goal was like someone in your shoes. I want you to have that game have a low win rate, but I want that same game to be incredibly fun for someone who's on their first time.
Totally. Yeah, no, when I had Adam on, we talked a little bit about this. It's just like, I love how all the games, you can literally have anyone from like 5 years old to like 80 years old come in and like understand the games and at least be able to beat those few levels. And like, but you do have the hardcores where it's like, yeah, they can beat those more easily. But like, yeah, they still have the challenge once you get higher up. And I really love that. It's also cool to hear how like Adam is still the mastermind kind of behind the kind of initiating all the games. Like oftentimes, you know, when people get higher up in management, it's like they kind of take more of just like a supervising role, but it's cool to hear that he's still involved, but also just that you're able to take that and turn it into the scalability of it all. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I love that he still makes the games because I feel like it really connects him with the players, right? It is very much like he's playing these games just as much as we are, and he's just loving it along the way.
Yeah. So coming from initially like a player's perspective, do you think that kind of changed your outlook on like how you see the games and just like how you're able to take them and see like if players would like it or if it needs to be changed a little bit or stuff like that?
Yeah, I think Adam very much believes that someone in my role couldn't have not been a player because so many times it's like they would have looked at the game running and they would be like, oh, well, I could never beat it, or this looks really cool because they made it. And there's that saying in creative projects where it's like kill your darlings kind of thing. And so someone who spends a lot of work into it, they're like, yeah, isn't this so cool? And we'd be looking at it and be like, no, this is as a player, there's no way. The red animations is probably the part that my player experience really matters, where you'll look at those reds and you'll be like, you know what's impossible just by looking at it in beta testing games. So it is like, great, now we know this is what can work for people.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So how long have you been involved with like the game creating and naming process?
I would say a collective of about 3 of my 5 years have been involved in the game naming and game development.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. Okay, just before we get into a little more of like the process of it all, would you have any other cool like hidden talents or hobbies outside of Activate?
I own a small business where I make handmade card games.
That's so cool.
And so, truthfully, I think my best talent is being able to playtest projects,
Mhm.
no matter who makes it. But my real talent that other people look at, I can juggle. I taught myself how to juggle when I was a streamer.
Dang,
So,
that's so cool. I love that. All right. So, who usually gets involved in the whole process of naming a game? Like, say, like you're involved in it, but like, is that something that would go through Adam or through like a certain level of management, like marketing? Kind of like, is it a super big group or is it kind of like a small team?
so it's when it's first coming up with like a quote unquote like code name. The idea is that that's going to come up from Adam. So when you are coming up with the idea of a game, you naturally will make a name for it because
Hmm.
the idea is in your head, right?
Yeah.
So a perfect example of this is zones in Grid.
Yeah.
That one was very much like the gameplay kind of really just put that name into a code name, right? It was just like, we
Hmm.
should name it Zones. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
that process is basically 2 people, and they just talk about the names of the games, and it's basically based off the idea of the game.
Yeah.
As the game moves on, more and more aesthetics go into it. So what songs
Hmm.
get chosen, what colors of lights go up, how does the gameplay actually work? At that point, it's about a team of 5 to 6 people who anyone who's had the little hands in the pot, basically they will say, you know what? That original code name doesn't work for me anymore.
Hmm.
So, perfect example of that actually is when we switched the games from push to press, we needed to come up
Yes.
with brand new games for it or brand new names
Hmm.
because our system
Yeah.
doesn't allow it to have the same names.
Yeah.
And so we basically looked at like the theme of every single one of them and was like, what kind of themes can we have for these ones? And that's kind of how they come to be.
Totally. Yeah. And I know there's like a kind of a similar thing with like pipes and portals. It's like you got a lot of like similar games, but you had to adapt the name a little bit. And like they each have a name that like really speaks to the type of game that it is, which I think. So when you think of these like brainstorming sessions of just like how the game comes to be with all the elements and stuff, like is it usually kind of like more serious of like what this game's identity is going to be? Or is it more kind of like laid back and fun? Like what do you feel like the vibe is when you're kind of coming up?
Coming up with the code name of the game is one of the most laid back experiences I ever have at Activate, truthfully. We had a game, some stores still have it, called Digby. And literally
Okay.
that
Yeah.
name was created because of someone mishearing someone else say the name of a game. It's like that laid back. Adam
Oh, that's
said, "Why
awesome.
don't we just name it like Rigby?" And the other person in the team said, "Did you just say Digby?" And he says, "Sure." And that is literally how laid back the code names are for the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like this is comparable. It's not any more serious. But when we
Yeah.
switched
Yeah.
from precision in press to bullet train, that was a little bit more
Mhm.
serious. It was very much like, what could our theme be? Oh, well, what if we had these like 2 tracks going around? And someone's like, oh, that's like a train. And so we had to like really dive into it. What sounds really cool to us?
Yeah, no, that's really cool, and it sounds like sometimes, like, the code name
The code
kinda,
name.
like, comes through and, like, stays as the name itself, but, like, typically when it comes to, like, a new game, like, does it usually change around a little bit, like, before you get to it? And, like, if so, how long does it usually take from, like, the initial process to kinda getting its final name? Like, is it right before it comes out, or is it kinda, like, vary along the way? Or yeah, like, how many, like, decisions and small changes are made in the long haul?
Yeah, so the code name doesn't change. So I would say that a game probably takes about a month to really nail in a lot of the decisions that we want to make before it goes into beta mode.
Mhm, mhm.
And we don't change the code name until probably about a week before it gets released, if we change it at all. A lot
Yeah.
of games keep their code names. Yeah, I would say that most of them do actually.
Yeah. So when you mentioned like a beta mode, I actually was at Activate somewhat recently. I went with my brothers while I was in town for a little bit, and I did see that they made Undercover like Volume 2, which I thought was really cool because I really like Undercover. I saw a little bit of like different graphics. I don't know if it's going to replace Undercover or if it's going to be like a second version of it, which I mean, I'm not opposed to having another game, which would be awesome. But like, are you guys planning to do that more where you kind of like put out a beta version of a game? I know like you don't get to like record high scores, but just like getting it out there so that people can try it out, see what it's like, see if the players like it or if they have any suggestions or anything like that.
Yeah, so Undercover is the perfect example of this because we're planning on doing this with just about every game in the entire facility. Is that our processes for making games has changed over the years, but we didn't want to like fundamentally change like everything in one go. People still love the experiences. So
Sure.
Undercover,
Yeah.
we made one that is V2. It's going to replace the other one eventually. So we wanted to get people's
Okay.
feedback on the theme. I don't know if you noticed the theme is just completely different. Did
But
you actually
yes.
play
Yeah.
V2?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. It was like I was playing with my little brother, so it was mostly just me like being like, "Hey, press that one, press that one." But at the same time, like I did really like it. I liked the music switch. It kind of like got more into like the vibe of it, you could say, and like
Yes.
how things are like swapping around at the end. Like I love the intro and like yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, so that is probably the first time we've ever had the name of the game decide the theme of the game. Undercover just didn't
Interesting.
have really any theme to it. It was we
Hmm.
needed to come up with a game that just had a similar name to the one in Push.
Yeah.
But with the
Yeah.
name Undercover, we were like, what's really undercover about this? And so that's why that intro is
Mm-hmm.
like that Pink Panther kind of like
Yes.
hiding among the other buttons. And so it's undercover. And so the
Gotcha.
other thing is that that's the first game that we've switched to be completely as colorblind friendly as we possibly can.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
idea that we've always said is that the people who create the games and who are involved in the whole process, it's about keeping their passion for the game alive. And if they have a name that they love, and maybe they're the only person who loves that name, if
Yeah.
they're the ones who are like, listen, I'm in love with this project, and part of that is I'm in love with this name, then that's just the dream. That's just like, great, let them be in love with their dream. And then that way we get the best product imaginable.
Totally. That's really cool. And I like that kind of side where it's like, it's not just like robotic trying to make this like the most appealing for everyone. It's like, no, like you have like real passion behind the game, which just makes the game itself much better. So when it comes to like what makes a game name great, how important do you think a name is to like the game itself? Like you said, like on like the creator's side, it kind of adds like that passion and stuff. But like, say for example, like some of my favorite games would be like Order Up. Grid is another. Even Undercover, and like I like the aspect that it's like kind of switching that way now. Like, how important do you think the name is to like the player's experience and the vibe of the game?
So I would say it's very important for the vibe. For me, it's about it really depends. It's kind of like how much of a flagship of a game do we think it's going to be? We knew Order Up was going to be just a great game for everybody. It's not
Hmm.
about like sometimes as an example puzzle games, they are harder to find that audience, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so when we come up with a game that's like, we know that this is just going to hit on all cylinders, it's kind of like,
Hmm.
great, let's find a name that really works. And then we try to make it so that the name does tell you a little bit about what you're doing in the game.
Hmm.
So Order Up, you're probably doing something in order, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that way people can be like, I understand why the name of it is this way.
Hmm. What are the most important things that come into it? Like, does it have to be like really like catchy or memorable, or like you've talked about, like just having like a real like thing that you can do like for graphics and stuff? Like, what is the most important things to have for a good game in your opinion?
The most important thing is, truthfully, it's just how quick and snappy they are to say. I think that that's like the
Hmm.
most important part. Zones is such a perfect example of that, where it is just
Yes.
like, what games
Yeah.
do you play? Zones. Easy.
Zones.
You just say
Yeah.
it as fast as you can. Activate is already such a fast-paced experience, and you sweat and you run and you're going as quickly as you possibly can. So I don't think we're ever going to make a game that's like insanely long, right? Like it's not going to be like a story in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Galactic Space Destroyers 2.5. Like, I don't know. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
like
could
even
definitely.
asteroids, right? Like it's not like it's not like intergalactic space travelers. It's like,
Yeah.
what are you
Yeah.
doing in the game? You know that asteroids are coming. So that's probably the
Totally.
most important
Yeah.
part of a game. There are, of course, some other things that, as I mentioned before, that like kind of passion, having that creative kind of bonus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, and it's kind of hard not for us to be blindsided. I too focused on it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when we make like multiple games at once,
Mm-hmm.
in those experiences, sometimes the code name changes more than normal because we decide to name them all together.
Yeah.
So when we were
Yeah.
naming all the competitive games, originally, the first competitive games we ever made, we named every room with a different theme. So Old
Okay.
Arena was all
Yeah.
wetlands themed. And
Interesting.
then Climb was mountain themed, and Hoops was
Yeah.
desert themed. We knew we wanted a competitive barrage, and
Yeah.
we decided that we wanted to have a name that rhymed, and so we named it Mirage.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
named it Mirage, we started to name other ones Oasis and stuff like that.
Interesting. That's cool.
So sometimes that will come into effect. Canyon Cross in Technique kept its name
Mm-hmm.
because it's mountain themed. But in that way, sometimes it's just about number one, making sure it's nice and quick and easy to say. Number two, make sure people kind of get a little bit of a feeling about what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And then three,
Yeah.
it's all about us having fun. So
Yeah,
that's kind of like one
totally.
of the biggest things is just if we're not having fun naming stuff, then we're probably going to give it to a bunch of pencil pushers who have the perfect marketing. Like, hey, you know what's going to really, really ring? Skibbity as a name, you know?
Oh man. Yeah, that would be horrible. Yeah.
Watch, I'm
No,
going to
so
say
like
that.
kind of
Adam's going to watch this podcast and he's going to be like, Skibbity, I found it.
and when it comes to like even if it's a small team, is there anything that's like too weird or too generic kind of, and like where do you draw the line for that?
So I would say that there's probably a line that some of the team wishes was drawn, but is not. Digby was actually like the perfect example. Digby and Dartmouth. So how Dartmouth got its name was not because of mishearing a pronunciation like Digby. We learned that Digby is a small town in Canada, in one of the provinces.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when we were making the games, we wanted to find a game name that had the same feeling as the last one. So we looked up where Digby is, and there's another small place in in the same province as Digby named Dartmouth. And so Dartmouth has its name because it shares the same location as Digby.
Huh.
And some of the team is not a fan. I can assure you. They wish
mean-
that we did not name it Dartmouth at all. But truthfully, the only thing I like to say about Dartmouth is that as much as it's really cool that we actually have a location in Dartmouth, I like to say that we named Dartmouth because you are shooting darts. So think of the strike balls as darts
Yeah.
into, and
Yeah.
you've seen the images of Dartmouth. They
Yeah.
are like big
Yeah.
mouths. So I was just like,
Totally.
oh, you're darting mouths. So I'm like, that's the name of the game to me. But
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. No, I always was wondering. I was like, I didn't care to look it up, but I was like, is that like something about like hitting like consistently or like trying to like memorize? Like, is this some like code word? But nope, it's just a
yeah,
place, which
so
is
in that
pretty
way,
cool. Yeah.
we kind of like if someone's feeling something, it's kind of just like great, like let them feel it, right? Like
Totally.
Activate's still
Yeah.
young. Let someone really explore something different, right?
For sure, for sure. So yeah, kind of thinking of like a newer game and kind of like how that got its name, like something like say like Darvill Dash or Sharpshooter even. Like how did those names come about?
So I'll start with Sharpshooter because that one has a little bit less of a fun history than Darvill Dash.
Fair
Because
enough.
Darvill Dash has a very fun history. But Sharpshooter, we named it because when we had a game before, we had a game in Supergrid that was very similar to the game Sharpshooter. It was called Blast. When Blast retired, because we only had 2 levels for it, and those 2 levels were a little bit too hard. They were back in the day when Activate was just like insanely hard. Now, because of
Yeah,
the 10
yeah,
levels, you have like such a good progression.
for sure.
We had already made a game called Blast. Blast ended up in Push, which is the old version of Mines. So we already knew we were going to change it. And so that one was because of the gameplay, right? You have to be
Yeah,
sharp and precise while shooting tiles in Mega Game.
yeah.
Okay. Just
Mm-hmm.
naturally came up. It was the code name when we were making the actual concept of it, and it just stuck. Why would you change anything about it? When it comes to Darvill Dash is actually named after an employee who worked for Activate. They retired. They were like the first employee who ever retired from Activate. And they were very, very special to us. They had family ties into the whole thing. So one of our
Yeah.
leads of our partners communications, their last name is Darvill, and their dad worked for Activate.
Holy
And so
smokes.
when his dad retired,
Yeah.
Truthfully, it wasn't even our lead who wanted to name something after his dad. It was Adam. Adam was just like, this person was so special to us. Like,
Yeah.
let's name a game after him.
So
And
cool.
so Darvill was our last name.
Yeah.
And we still, of course, wanted a name that conveyed what the gameplay is. And we knew you were going to be like running around, holding that button and running out. And so
For
we wanted to name
sure.
it Darvill Dash. So just for the alliteration and the fun of it. We'd never had named something after a person before. That's why we named it Darvill Dash.
Yeah, that's cool. And it really does have like a nice ring to it. But yeah, no, it'd be such an honor to have a game named after you. That's like so cool. I love that.
And it was
So
really cool
yeah.
too, because everyone, like, not a lot of people know that history, right? It's not something that we like
Yeah.
put out in press releases. Hey, first retiree from
Yeah.
Activate.
Yeah.
This is their like plaque, right? But
Totally.
the players all just loved the name, right? They're just like, oh, cool,
For
Darvill
sure.
Dash is coming out. And that really like opened the door for us to be like, we have so much creative freedom because of our players, right? Our players
For
are very
sure. Yeah.
accepting and they love Activate and they just want to talk about it all the time. And so when we come up with a crazy name, we'll get some feedback on it. And it's the players are just so incredible that they're just like, this is awesome. The gameplay is what's like really driving us, and Darvill Dash is just a cool name.
Absolutely. No, I love that. So like when it comes to like your favorite game, like whether like that's name or even just like a game itself, like what would you say was kind of like the process behind like helping create that and then helping name that, and like some cool like memories or things that you had along the way there?
Yeah. So my favorite game at Activate is Mega Relay. It's by far my favorite one. The idea of the name of Mega Relay is actually an old process that we had. I think I would probably change the name if we were to do it again. But the idea is that in Hyde, we came up with the idea of Relay, which is was the first game we ever made where you took turns playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that was like super unique to us. And it was so funny because on paper, it seemed like it was going to be a bad idea. Why would you want only one person running at a time? But
Yeah.
at the time, it became my favorite. It was just like, there's nothing more fun than you're sitting there watching your team like play the game and you're sitting there almost like stuck. You're just kind of like, I'm just like your cheerleader now, right? We actually were
Yeah.
able to turn teams into like an audience for the rest of their team. So Relay easily became my favorite at the time. When we made Mega Grid, it was just an obvious switch. Hey, we have this giant room. We need Relay in here. And we're going to add in the reds because, of course, in Relay, you have the big column in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how are we going to do that? And when we came up with the code name was Mega Relay because it's Relay in Mega Grid.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
And we couldn't figure out what to name it other than that. It was like Relay was just so perfect because Relay, of course, is the race where you take turns, basically.
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
And so with Mega Relay, we have 3 relays.
Totally. Yeah. No, that honestly, I have a new like respect for that now because I didn't like, I've never really seen it like that. I like what you're saying there of kind of like, yeah, like freezes everyone else and really isolates one player, but it's not like you feel like you're being left out or being like kind of left behind. No, it's like you're interactive and you're like, hey, like the light's over here. Like, hey, like you got
Yes.
this. Like, let's go. Like, I really like that aspect of it. So it's kind of cool to see how that came about. But yeah, so you were saying like you would rename like that one game. If you can rename any Activate game, what would it be? What would you change it to and why?
I think that the game I would probably change would probably be Asteroids, mostly because I want to change the theme of Asteroids.
Okay.
I really like the idea of going through space and just like as things are like debris is coming out and you're kind of like blasting the asteroid as that's coming up. My concern with Asteroids is that I would love to add in other things. Like if like an alien spaceship came by and now you have to hit that alien spaceship. Right now,
Yeah.
the name Asteroids kind of like, well, it almost like has to be Asteroids. I would want it to be called like Warp Space. Something along that line, or like light speed. So it's kind of like you're traveling at light speed and you have to like get off the debris. Because as you know, the animation like blasts you through light speed every single time you go. That would probably be the one I'd want to change. There is actually one other one I want to change.
Okay. Yeah.
Labyrinth. Labyrinth, if people don't know, is Pac-Man. But when you are running, you have to actually run in place to move through the maze and avoid the ghosts.
Yeah.
I want it to be closer to the name Pac-Man than Labyrinth. Because then as people look at it, I think that if you know how to play Pac-Man, you know how to play Labyrinth. It's just like, it's so easy in that way.
Yeah.
So I'd want it to be, so if legal allowed me, we would just call it Pac-Man. It would just be like, that's just the name of it.
Yeah.
If legal didn't allow me, which they do not, I would want to call it like Pack Rats, where you're rats in a maze and that pack is still there and it's spelt like Pac-Man, but it's Pack Rats.
Yeah. I like it. That's awesome. And yeah, you mentioned how like Relay was one of like your favorite games to kind of name and help like create with that. And I like that a lot. But like, do you have any other ones that were kind of like specifically fun or had any cool moments along the way?
The games, I'll tell you, there's a list of games I wish stayed with the names that they were, and they are no longer the names that they are.
Yeah.
In Arena, which is a very old room, a lot of them have it. When we were first coming up with the competitive games, we had 5 competitive games, which is like the most competitive games we've ever made.
Yeah.
And we named it Wetlands because we had a game called SWAT, which was hit as many blues as possible.
Yeah.
And we wanted a game that had a similar name to it. So SWAT became Swamp. And because we had Swamp, we had Swamp and Bog and Marsh. And the name I wish stuck because it would be my silliest name of a game that I had any contribution to. So we had a game called Bog.
Yeah.
And the idea of Bog was that you had to fill in the screen with as many of your colors as you could. So as you hit it, it rotated to the next color.
Yeah.
And it was very much like the Mario Party game, like Paint Splatter, where you're trying to like cover the wall as much as you can.
Yeah.
We had a game that was very similar to that, but as you hit them, it more like filled in everything around it. And it was a very similar type of game, but different. But we named it Quag. And if I could name a game Quag again, that would be my dream. I wish we could name a game Quag, but it's not a real word, and it doesn't hit my main 3 ways of naming a game. So truthfully, if I named it Quag, I would be opposed to my own name, but it's one of my favorite names we've ever come up with.
Well, yeah. Is there anything else cool that you'd like to say or any thoughts that come to your mind before we close here?
I would say not really. I would love to know, like, people who listen to this, like all comments. I would love, one of my favorite things is that the name of a game is so separate from the game in a lot of ways, right? Where when, I know this isn't a super liked game on your show, but Hopscotch. Hopscotch was named first. My partner actually was just like, how do you guys have a game where you hop on squares and you don't have a game called Hopscotch? And so I was like, great, I'll make a game. I would say that my main flaw in Hopscotch is that there's a lot of games that you can make that are so good for 3 levels. You have 3 like perfect Hopscotch levels as an example. But then I'm still stuck making 7 more levels. And being like, how do you make it hard while not making it impossible? And I think that when I added the reds into Hopscotch, that was the problem. That was just a problem. I shouldn't have added the reds into Hopscotch. I think if we removed the reds, Hopscotch actually would have been fine. It was just, you could tell people were like, oh yeah, level 6 and up of Hopscotch suck. And it was just because of the reds. That's when the reds get introduced. Sure, you can argue that it's the I hold my button, but you memorize your pattern. It could be that problem. I don't know. But to me, I'm just super curious. I would love one day to have a name suggestion initiative where people submit names of games that they would love. I'm one of the community managers of the Discord, so I monitor it all the time. And so when people suggest games, I read every single one of those games. And sometimes they put in the names and I'm like, oh, that's a good name. But to me, I would love to hear about like what other names are people like surprised we've never done.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Well, yeah, for those of you guys listening, I'm sure David would love to hear your feedback. So be sure to, if you haven't already, join the Discord. We'll have a link down below. And if you have any comments about the podcast, feel free to drop them in the comments, either on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this. And we'll get those questions on over to David. Well, thanks so much for hanging out. It's been awesome to chat with you and hear like an insider's perspective from the game process. And yeah, thanks so much for being part of it.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. All right. And for those of you guys listening, as always, have fun, keep activated. Bye for now.
Congratulations. Replay option is available.